It's Dr. Richard Ingebretson, who is a professor in the Department of Physics and a clinical instructor of medicine here at the University of Utah. His presentation is entitled Glen Canyon, Heart of the Colorado. Please join me in welcoming him.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. And can everybody hear me? Because I can't hear myself. Is this clear back there? Okay, good. That's all I needed to know. So thank you for including me. It's always humbling to be invited to speak to a group like this and with a wide range of views. And by the way, one of the first things I learned about with the Colorado River is everybody has a different view of how to run it. And there's just not one view. I mean, everybody has an opinion. And believe me, I've heard just about all of them in the 12 years that I've been involved with this interesting movement. It all started for me about, and gosh, I have to say, isn't Tom Till awesome? Several of his photos adorn my wall. Not the real big expensive ones, by the way, but the little smaller ones that I can afford. But I still have them. And there we go. Now I can hear. Thank you. I don't know what did. Now I can sound like I'm powerful and important. See, you have to do that when Patricia Mulroy is following you, because I'm going to have them turn the volume down just a little bit. I'm just kidding. By the way, I had never met her before, although we've heard of her for many, many years. And she's been very good to us, by the way. And she's one of the most gracious people that I've heard of and known. But I saw her come in, and I know her by her photograph, and I introduced myself to her, and she was very kind to me, and I appreciate that. I'm speaking between two very powerful people. I wish they had asked my 6- and 8-year-old niece and nephew to speak either side of me. I think so the movement started, and immediately word got out about 12 years ago that they wanted to drain Lake Powell, although we really were talking about restoring Glen Canyon. And I got a phone call one day on the phone, and someone said, "Are you the crazy fool that wants to drain Lake Powell?" And I said, "Mother, is that you?" I mean, really, how low can you get? So, well, let me just show you some pictures of Glen Canyon. Now, these are not my photos, and unlike Tom, I'm going to go a little bit faster on them, just because of the length of time that we have, and Tom's were just so beautiful. This is David Brower floating through Glen Canyon, and his daughter's here today, and I think she may even be on that boat. This was called Music Temple Bar. This was across from Hidden Passage, and I was told that the river here was very fast. Even though I saw Glen Canyon as a very little boy, I didn't see this part of it. Okay, here we go. For this part of the show, we'll dim the lights. And this is where John Wesley Powell stayed for 2 days because of the Music Temple was so beautiful. This is Gregory Natural Bridge, one of the largest natural bridges in the world. It is underwater, and the little top of it's coming out. About 3 years ago, we didn't know exactly where it was, and Washington Post was interested in this restoring Glen Canyon and said, "Let's go find something neat." And I said, "Well, let's go find Gregory Natural Bridge." And we did, and the water, I'm supposed to use this. There it is. The water level was about right here at the time, and the arch almost came back out. That's up 50-mile canyon, or what they used to call Soda Gulch. This is West Canyon Creek. One of the things that Glen Canyon had that was so beautiful was a lot of side canyons with a lot of water in it, and that you could hike up. I saw several of them when I was a very young kid. With the Boy Scout leader took us down, and we hiked up Forbidden Canyon. The Petroglyphs and Smiths Fork Canyon were very beautiful. This was called Labyrinth Canyon, underwater. The whole mountain, the whole canyon that this is in is underwater now. This was Dungeon. Katie Lee named Dungeon Canyon. She said it was cold as a dungeon, and that's why it got its name. Back in the 50s, you just named things. Life was somewhat simpler in some ways back then, wasn't it? You just named a canyon, and there it was. This is the confluence of the Escalante River, and right here, and I've got to use this pointer. So this was a map that had been carved out by someone, and we don't know who it was. It was over on these rocks over here. We don't know exactly where it is, but someone sometime in the past actually carved out the Escalante River so that people hiking up it could know a map of it. And I don't know much more about it. Well, the dam was completed in 1963 for a whole variety of reasons, mostly to protect the endowment of the upper basin, and to keep that water flowing down at a regulated pace. Political structure. The only vote that Barry Goldwater said he ever regretted was the vote to build this dam. There are other ways to control the water. There still are other ways, but that's the way they chose, and they built this dam to do it. David Brower called it America's greatest environmental mistake, and I'll just submit to you, if you global warming and pollution of the atmosphere and chopping down the forests that we have are enormous, but if you look at a point event that occurred in this country that caused more environmental damage, you'd be hard-pressed to find the building of Glen Canyon Dam. And my entry in the environmental world is rather new. It really came about 12 years ago when this movement started. What was interesting when the movement started and we started doing the Colorado River, I had never heard of the Colorado River Compact. I had no idea what that was. Actually, that was an advantage because it allowed us to think out of a very closed box. In fact, someone called me up and said, well, what are you going to do about the compact requirements? And I said, what compact? I mean, I had no idea what it was. Gregory Bridge was flooded. This is looking at two sides of it. This is the Escalante confluence, 10 years apart as water was starting to fill it. Cathedral in the Desert, of course, one of them, probably one of the most famous places in Glen Canyon. And this is what it looks like now. The water level is just about there at this point. And hidden passage going underwater. They call it hidden passage. For those of you who've been on Glen, I know a couple of you have, was because you would pass it. You couldn't see the entrance to it. Labyrinth Canyon as it fills up, and you can notice that one stretch of desert varnish coming down the side as it fills in. Mystery Canyon filling in, and Gregory Butte before and after. This is Lagorce Arch. Now, I have to tell you a quick story. I met the two men that named Lagorce Arch. They're in their 90s. And several years ago, they came up, and they had been hired by the National Geographic to go down the Escalante and name features and write an article, and they were hoping to get it published. So they went down and named everything down there. Beeman Arch was one of the men, and so Beeman, we named a feature for one of the other. They named Cathedral in the Desert. But they thought they'd have a better chance. They told me the story of getting their article published in the National Geographic, yet they named one of the features after the head of the National Geographic Society. So they named this Lagorce Arch, and that was, in fact, that's an absolutely true story. So, and they got their article published, and they got all the things named for them, each other. They actually measured Stevens Arch and went down through that area. If you want to read about the naming of Cathedral in the Desert, go to glencanyon.org. And no, where is it? No, it's the site at cathedralinthedesert.org. I think they've got the history of that on there with those two men. A lot of Indian sites. I spoke yesterday, the same talk, to the Museum of Natural History. And those people are protecting a lot of this artifacts that were taken out. Northern Arizona University has some, and the University of Utah has some. And they're building a new natural history museum on this campus. And they're going to put some of these features out. A lot of stuff down there. Just amazing that they've got down there. Oops. So, and I don't want to get into whether Lake Powell is needed or was used or useful or why we did it or not. And I want to talk about the future of it. There's a couple of things going on that I just want to point out to people, and as you make decisions in the future about your beliefs on this and how you're going to stand, and as you make water decisions, you should know a little bit of this. So what is the future of the Colorado River and in that area? There's four very important events that are affecting Lake Powell and the Colorado River. There's evaporative losses, just want to mention, sedimentation. There's development of water by a really rapidly growing population, global warming. And I'm just going to talk just a little bit about each one of these. Now, does that timer mean how much time I have left? Oh, I can tell more jokes then? No, that's right, okay. All right, that's a countdown. All right. So when Lake Powell is full, it loses upwards of 1 million acre-feet. The number varies, 950, 850, depending on how much bank seepage goes. But on the average, it's about 6% of the Colorado River flow. And it goes up into the atmosphere. Away. How well I know about PowerPoint. So 6% of the river's annual flow. And someone said to me, in many of our debates with our good friends at the Bureau, they say that's an acceptable loss. Well, it's 3 times Nevada's entire allotment of water. And I read in the paper, and I read all these things they're trying to do to come up with 50,000, 20,000, 80,000 acre-feet, lining canals, seeding the clouds, and doing all these interesting things. And they have 1 million acre-feet up there, 3 times Nevada's allotment of water. Well, it isn't acceptable to me. Maybe I'm wrong in saying that, but it's my opinion. I think that's an unacceptable loss. And as water gets tighter, we ought to think about that. Maybe that's something that we want to deal with. Since created, more than 40 million acre-feet of water have been lost to evaporation bank seepage. So I think it's 44, 45 or something like that. At that level, I mean, at Salt Lake Valley's level of use, that's 200 years of use, of this current use. It's a ton of water. And it just keeps going up into pixie dust into the sky. That number is going to go up with global warming. And there's a ton of models out there, and no one can predict it. We don't know exactly, because it's so dependent upon the levels of everything, but we know it's going to get worse. So let's talk about sediment. I love this, the Colorado River when it turns red like that. That actually is my photograph, and that is it doesn't often turn red like that, but we caught that up in Cataract Canyon one year when it came down. And oh, by the way, I want to mention about Cataract Canyon. There's a great book out there by John Weishaupt on Cataract Canyon, and it's just excellent. And I'm going to plug Eleanor Inskip's book on Glen Canyon. They're my friends, and they're out at the King English bookstore out there, so you ought to go get those. Sorry, little plug for friends. But this is one of the siltiest rivers in the world. It was named Red Water by Colorado River by Red, and we caught that. It was a beautiful river to see it. So we heard a lot yesterday about sedimentation, and there's absolutely no way that I can talk about global warming and sedimentation to any scholarly level. So I get the data. It's the primary care doctor in me. I get data from all of the people. When my patients come in and I speak to the specialists, I try and interpret it for the patients that come into me. And that's what I do as a primary care and as an emergency room physician. I say, well, you have this disease and this is how we're going to treat it. And that's after a 2-hour conversation with the cancer doctor. And I try and just do it. So that's what I can do here as like a primary care doctor, help you to understand a little bit of how I understand sediment. We didn't understand it before, when they built the dam. It really wasn't well understood. It's people like, Jack Schmidt and Logan and others who have really brought the science just lately. But we did this number. I had my physics students do this. I said, we got the number of acre-feet in Lake Powell that was estimated by the Bureau of Reclamation. I said, convert that from million acre-feet for 40 years to dump trucks per day. And this is the number. It's 30,000 dump trucks each and every day of sediment are deposited into Lake Powell. That's a ton of sediment going in. And I mean, we're talking about slurring it and moving it, but I mean 30,000 truckloads on the average go in each day. Give or take 2,000, 3,000, it's in that order. That's a lot. This is sediment back in 2002, and then it turned into that. All dams trap sediment, some more than others. The Colorado River is one of the siltiest rivers, and we heard yesterday that's not even one of the 25 biggest rivers in the United States, but it certainly is one of the siltiest rivers in the world. This is the Ringe Dam. Pam Hyde and I went down to find this thing, and we were looking for it, and we asked the ranger, where's that dam that's sedimented in? And he said, they've all sedimented in. I mean, that was his response. Like, okay, well, just point us to one. And we went up and photographed this. This is the Ringe Dam. It's above Malibu, 1924, 100-foot high dam. Took 13 years to silt in completely. This is a wonderful dam. This is the Matilaha Dam. It's more famous. Most of you have seen it. It's 200 feet high on the Ventura River. So it was built in 48. Took 30 years to fill in with silt. They all do this. Dams are typically not supposed to do that. This scares everybody. It scares me to look at. I mean, not only are the salmon going extinct, the people down there are, because they don't know what's going to happen to them. This is in 87. This area of Lake Powell is 200 feet deep. 2001, it was 200-foot sloping delta. So, look, I'm a physician. I have to keep things simple. This is what you eat for breakfast. And when you do, it turns into that. And then when I'm in the ER, the 48-year-old man comes in with a heart attack. And that's what happens. This is what's happening to Colorado. Now, the title of the talk today is Glen Canyon, Heart of the Colorado. And I literally mean the heart of the Colorado. These are like capillaries and vessels that are filling in. The sediment is filling these reservoirs. And we heard yesterday that this river, we've spent 80 years dividing up the Colorado River water, and we're not even paying any attention to the sediment. And the answer to it is not to ignore it, and the answer is not to let it just trap behind dams. We've got to talk about how to start moving this down, ultimately. So I have to tell you who gave me the idea about to do this. I know Floyd Dominy, and when this movement started, I invited he to come and debate David Brower. at this first meeting of the Glen Canyon Institute. It's a big organization at the time. It had one member, and you can guess who that was. And Floyd Dominy came out, and I maintained a friendship with him. And they debated. But I went back to his house in Boyce, Virginia, and he said, well, Rich, how serious is this movement to let the water flow through Glen Canyon? And I said, it's pretty serious. He goes, well, you've got to do it differently. He said, Dave Brower's all wrong on this. He said, he said he wants to re-drill those tunnels. He says, you got to drill new ones. And he got out a napkin, and he said, you got to get the sediment around the dam. You got to get the water around the dam. He says, I've been thinking about this, and I'm going to tell you how to drain Lake Powell. And Eleanor Inskip, where are you, Ellie? She was there with me. He may have had one or two too many beers, I think, when he did this. I'm not sure, but I mean, here's the man that really built was the force behind Glen Canyon Dam. And so there's the napkin. And I'll have to tell you what this means. At the end of it, you can see here is his signature down here. I said, no one's going to believe me. Will you sign it? So he said, hell yeah, I'll sign it. And he signed it at February 9th, 1997. So I'll just tell you, so that's Glen Canyon Dam right there. And that's the generating station, and that's the Colorado River. And this is the spillway that's clogged up with, he said, he puts his eyeglasses down, and he says, that's 300 feet of reinforced concrete. You're never going to drill that out. He said, but here's what you do. You just take a new bypass tunnel over here. And right there you put in a waterproof valve. He says, the Corps of Engineers will love to do that. He says, that'll work. And that's when I said, sign it. And I have it, and it's all over now. I mean, it's a favorite thing of mine. Because of the species decline, we learned yesterday from Jennifer Pitt, there's a couple of dozen species that are suffering downstream. We're going to talk about that in just a second. These are the ones in the Grand Canyon because of my good friend Dave Wegner, who's worked so hard to try and preserve these. So there's dozens. These are just 4 of the several dozen that are endangered at this time. Let me talk about what we want to do. Let's talk about increased use of the Colorado River. So we've seen all sorts of basin maps, but Southern California, they're talking 6 million people growth by 2025. Where is that water going to come from? They're going to use every drop and have from the Colorado. Las Vegas and Patricia Mulroy will give us a more accurate number, but as I understand it, it's 300 to 400 homes a month or something like that that are being built there, or 12,000 a month. Is that about right? Okay, I will correct that the next talk. It's half that, so it's about 6,000 people a month. Isn't it wonderful to have talent after you? Phoenix is growing at historic rates. We heard yesterday that the Upper Basin is going to develop their water to maybe up to even 6 million acre feet, is what they're saying. And so a lot of people. Well, this chart was prepared by Nicholas Christensen and 2 other hydrologists who we asked to look at this. And so the only 2 charts I'm going to show are these. And you'll notice that this says what the percent of time Lake Powell will be full, not including global warming, just if the upper basin goes to 5.4 million acre feet from what they're at right now. And the thing that I'll have to show is that, so here I'll just put it, this is 30% full, which is the elevation of about Cathedral in the desert. It will be, they went back 112 years since historic flows and used current use at 5 foot 4 and a 100-year flow in the past, assuming they were going to be about the same, which is a pretty good model. And where's the little arrow? So there is 30% full. So it is going to be 30% full about 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60% of the time. Just with old flows, current use, it's going to be 30% full about 60% of the time. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing. Reservoirs go up and down, and they're designed to do that. But if the basin goes up higher, then this curve will shift to the left, and it will be lower more often. You have to think about that. So you have to start asking the questions. Is the purpose of this reservoir is to protect the endowment of the upper basin, so that those hungry water thieves in the lower basin don't get it, but we'll get you just the minimum requirement and so on. And you have to start asking ourselves in the future, what is the purpose of it? And this is the reason why. This is another chart by Nicholas Christensen and his team when we asked them to do this. The red line that you see sloping down there is consumptive surplus after consumptive use and losses, and we're just not having surplus on the river. You can only store surplus water. You can't deny people drinking water to store it, and we're getting very close to where water on the Colorado River for storage is just begin beginning to run out. It's a great chart, and thanks. They produced about 90 charts or so for us, and this team of hydrology was led by Nicholas, and thanks for his good work. Let's just talk about global warming. Now, I'm going to put a caveat on global warming here because we've heard a lot about it. And again, I'm playing the role of the primary care doctor and just sort of summarizing it. But I took Nicholas out in the hallway after his talk this morning and said, look at this. Am I saying the right things? And he went through slide by slide and said, yes, okay, good, and I changed that. Made some minor changes. So this comes. So when you speak after Nicholas Christensen, you can either look like a scientist or an idiot. So I chose to look smart and had him look at it first. So global warming. Temperature of the Earth is rising. No debate about that. Causes, you can debate all you want, but the temperature of the Earth is rising. It's this rate that is scaring everybody. You know, a little rise is one thing, but this temperature is going up. And we've seen that chart 3 or 4 times. Didn't know they were going to show it, so I'll skip over it. The IPCC estimates somewhere between 4 degrees and 10 degrees Fahrenheit. 4 degrees by the mid-century, 10 degrees by the end of the century. That's sort of the numbers that we're getting out of the scientists now. Temperatures will rise even if greenhouse gases are curtailed. Well into the next century. By the way, the data I got from this was from this incredible Stegner conference a year ago. We just pulled all this out of there. That was such a neat conference, too. It's not a future phenomenon. It's happening now. The effects are becoming overwhelming, and we're starting to see them. The droughts and things are here. Many of the effects will be intensified in the American West for a variety of reasons. We're going to see much more desert-type material, things happening out here. There's going to be more heat in the West. They say 4 to 10 degrees by mid and the end of the century. The West is thought to be even hotter than that. Models show it going up more degrees. Greater at higher elevations than in lowlands, with significant implications for snowpacks. We heard about that this morning. More evaporation and dryness. Because of the increased temperature of the Earth's atmosphere, higher temperatures would increase evaporation from the reservoirs. Difficult number to get a finger on. We've been trying, but it's hard. The models just don't know because as temperature goes up and down and reservoir levels go. More soil dryness, increase the needs of crops for supplemental water. Ask the question, should we be growing crops in the Mojave Desert? Am I the only one that thinks that's interesting? Am I wrong in saying that? The probability that rainfall will be more intense with greater times in between those events. We heard those things today. We heard wonderful talks this morning about droughts and things. There will be a significant increase in droughts. We know they're going to be longer and deeper in between the periods of intense rains. Increase in wildfires, therefore. Increase in flooding around the areas of the wildfires, and decrease in the water quality around the areas of the wildfires, and increase in sedimentation rates in the areas of those wildfires. We're going to see those. A good one was the Hayman fire in 2002, a horrible fire. There's been a bunch of these. I just picked this one just to illustrate these enormous fires that we're starting to see. This is the Strontia Reservoir that filled into 30% of its capacity in one day after the fire. Just absolutely filled in. And the water quality down there, Denver relies on this water. These are real issues that water managers are going to have to deal with global warming. It has these effects: a longer rainy season, shorter snow season. I know that up in Salt Lake they're gearing up for that, and the ski people, it's a big deal. Decrease in the snowpack. We saw a number of numbers. I'll show those. Marked decrease in runoff, earlier end of runoff. Let's talk quickly. So 75% of the Colorado Basin comes from the snow. I didn't know that until last year. We had a talk at this conference. Storage systems are designed to capture that water. It's a great way to store water, the snow. It's much better than dams because it stays there all winter. It comes down. The problem, it comes down in a period of about 6 weeks. The purpose of dams then is to catch that water so you can use it all year round. It's a nice system to think about. Rain will continue through the fall and into the winter. Rain will continue to what is now winter and replace snowfall. Runoff's going to come sooner, and none of the models are saying in much as 30 days sooner. And we have seen that runoff already moving sooner, and by days. It's not by hours. We're up to days in that now. Already starting to see that. So these are the models. Some Canadian models predict there will be little or no snow in the Canadian Rockies. And I stood in the back with my niece sitting back there when the people that came down from Canada showed a slide, a model up there, and said, we're predicting no snow in the Canadian Rockies in one of our models by the year 2060. He clicked on and went to the next slide. And I looked at Meredith and I said, did he just say there's not going to be any snow in the Canadian Rockies and just went on to the next slide and didn't say something about that? I mean, like, my gosh, that's amazing. We're starting to see the ice packs, the ice caps melt. We're seeing glaciers recede. It's nuts. It's crazy. And to think that we're not going to have snow up there, I mean, that's just one model, and it may just be decreased. But the thought of that, I mean, imagine a scientist saying that, we're not going to have snow in the mountains. How did we get to this point? These are the two models. I ran these by Nicholas, the Dent and Stewart model. An increase in temperature of 2 degrees will decrease flow into Lake Powell by 23%. And an increase in temperature of 4 degrees will decrease in flow by 41%. The Hadley model, quoted a lot, decline in the runoff into the Colorado River 20 to 30% in the next 20 to 30 years. Interesting numbers. Big error bar on those. So increased temperatures in the upper Colorado River Basin, we've had on the average about 2.1 degree Fahrenheit hotter than the historic average. The pattern of that increased temperature through 95 and 4 show that it's been in January, February, March, which is the big fingerprint of global warming. This is when it has the greatest potential to decrease snowpack. And in 1981 till present, 12 of the 16 years have had decreased snow. 12 of the 16 years have had decreased snow. We're already seeing it. That translates, 10% decrease in runoff translates to a 36% reduction in power. These are real issues that we have to kind of look at and deal with. So this is the issue about Lake Powell. Lake Powell is caught between a very thirsty and growing lower basin and an upper basin that is deeply affected by global warming and promising to increase their use up to 6 million acre feet. And that's why Lake Powell is where it's at today. And that's the future of this reservoir. And, you know, as I say, I'm not a river scientist. I'm not a hydrologist. I listen to the people that speak, and I try to coalesce the data. It's not hard to see what's happening. And Lake Powell is 47% full today, and it's dropping. And Lake Powell, or Lake Mead, is 51% full, and it's going down at this time. So we have these huge reservoirs in the Mojave Desert evaporating water and just sitting there and thinking about it. So let me just tell you about the Glen Canyon Institute in the 13 minutes and 21 seconds that I have left. Founded in 1995, it was me at the start of it. A lot of great people here helped with it and appreciate their work. We immediately began scientific studies because the idea of flow through the Glen Canyon was just ludicrous. So we said, well, let's do the science as best we can, and we raised $250,000 with the help of a lot of people here in this room, and we did scientific studies, and we published those in 1999. They're available out on our table out there. It's the Citizens Environmental Assessment. Had a lot of good scientists work on that. This is what we advocate, just so that everybody knows. We look at Glen Canyon. That is our cause, and all of us have a cause, and thank you for your causes. You know, I support people's efforts, and you know, you should go for what you believe in. I believe that with all of my heart. We look at the restoration of Glen Canyon. We look for an efficient water delivery system for the West. We want to make this system work. And we advocate the redesignation of the Glen Canyon National Recreation Area to a national park. We think we'll get better protection from it. We think that it will be better for the economy in the area, and our focus now is to create a national park in the area these waters are gone and the land is out permanently, and what's the best way to protect them, publicize them, and keep them going. So just a study. What can we do now? Let me just give you humbly and without a tear just some of my thoughts. The National Academies last week released a report, a very interesting report, very similar in some ways to what we heard today about droughts and tree rings. But they called in this report, and this is the thing that my eyes caught. The committee and the National Academies called for a collaborative, action-based, action-oriented, comprehensive, basin-wide study of urban water practices and pressing issues in water supply and demand. This is exactly what I do when a patient comes into my hospital. We sit them in the ICU, we get our team together, we sit down, we get the pulmonologist, we get the hematologist, we get everybody in the same room, and they say, what are we going to do to save this patient's life? And we sit down as a team and we work as a team to solve the problem. And that is a wonderful, wonderful suggestion. It's the water manager here, and I have absolutely no influence over you except that I'm just one person. That is a great idea, is to look at a basin-wide approach to seeing what is the best way to run the system of the river. And this is something that I would absolutely love to see. Bright, creative, innovative ideas, and people to solve the problems that face Western water. There is absolutely no reason on earth that we have to shroud ourselves in old ideas if they don't work. We can't be afraid of change. This is a changing society, and as water needs change, as water availability changes, so must the water laws change. That's okay to change them. One of the things, and I just poke fun of my friends down at the Bureau, because honestly, and I have to say this, I do appreciate the fact that I get to shower every morning with water, and water comes out of my tap. I mean, these are good men and women, and I appreciate their work. And absolutely no way am I critical of a system, am I trying to demean them in any way. And I'm very sensitive to that, because I've been attacked by a lot of people, and I know how it is. So I want them to know I appreciate their hard work, and I don't mean to, although it's been an interesting experience. If I have time, I'll tell you stories. But anyway, so we shouldn't be afraid of change. We really shouldn't be. Change is good, but I'm also aware that change is hard. And when you change paradigms, it's even more hard. And when you change the government, it's just almost impossible. I mean, it just takes forever. And I understand that it's easy for me in a small environmental organization to run around and change on a dime and make suggestions. And the Bureau of Reclamation is shrouded with laws and regulations, and it's hard. And I appreciate that. The government is just by definition the government, I mean, that's how it is. But don't cling to old ideas that they don't make sense. If they don't make sense, let's move them. Let's do what's good for the system. Look to trends. People who set trends make billions of dollars, and we can do that in Western water. If we work as a system and try to get water to where it belongs and where it should be, it'll be good. Look to the value of free-flowing rivers. We don't have to dam rivers to make them valuable. We heard yesterday that we can restore certain segments of this river if we just tweak things. We don't have to redo the compact. We don't have to pass laws. I mean, people can sit down in the same room and say, you know what? Let's get water down to the delta. It's not going to take much. They don't need much. We learned yesterday from Jennifer Pitt we need just a little bit of water down there. We can come up with that. And if we do that, that'll be a good thing. And we should. And when you get restoration, there's wonder and there's an excitement about it. I can't tell you the number of people that have called me from around the world as they've wanted to come and see Glen Canyon that's restoring. It's exciting. It's wonderful. We can have growth, and we can have environmental protection. Environmentalists are not against growth, and we're not against using our natural resources. Please, people out there who think that because we're an environmentally inclined people that we are also bizarre and come from the bowels of hell. I mean, honestly, we actually have some nice ideas, and we're a lot about sustainability. And environmental protection means some things, and we'll talk about it in a second. Be sensitive to animal, plant, and aquatic life in your plannings. And when you make these decisions, and whether you're going to, and if you decide to equalize these two reservoirs, which I frankly don't understand how that's so essential to an efficient water delivery system. And forgive me for saying that, but I look at what's going on out here, and it seems like we're more interested in preserving a series of laws than trying to do what's best for Western water. I mean, I don't mean to be critical, but I mean that's what my view is, and I say it without a tear and love in my heart. But I just think that we're not doing the right thing. These species can't survive us, and they're not going to survive global warming. They cannot adapt fast enough, and they're sick and they're dying. I spent, in the last couple of weeks, for a variety of reasons, I spent a lot of time up on the cancer wards up here at the hospital with people that are dying. And the truth is, my brother has cancer, and I've been spending more time up there, and I'm learning what it's like to, for the third time in my life, to help someone to die. But I'm learning a lot about the people up there that volunteer their time and the people that are helping them. And God bless them for that. And I had that same feeling about the people in the environmental world that are trying to save these species from extinction. They love them and they care for them. It's the same kind of thing, and God bless them for what they're doing. We've got to help these species. They're not going to. They're going to need our help to survive. And we've got to start thinking about that, and I'll get a little bit more. They have water rights also. Now, people will scoff at that statement. And people will just say, I don't care if species go extinct. I've had that said to my face by so many people, it makes me sick. These animals have rights. And I would just ask this, as I do to my physics students, or when I teach at the medical school, when we're talking about the verities of healthcare reform, I just say, look at both sides and get involved, and don't just come in with a preconceived idea. If you don't understand why it's important that animals survive along with humans, then I'm going to suggest this book. It's Essentials of Conservation Biology. I'm not joking. go up to Fred Montag's class up here, sit in on it, and learn about the science of conservation biology and learn why it's essential that other species survive along with humans as well. We have got to help the other species of this planet survive. We are part of a fragile web. When one goes, we're next. We all have to fight the effects of global warming. And I get, one thing that frustrates me is when we say, well, the Bush administration, they haven't signed on to the Kyoto Agreement, and these people and that. You know what? Fine. We can start fighting global warming on our own. We can do it in Western water. We can do it in our backyards. We do it at home. We have to fight it. Decrease carbon. I quit a job in a rural ER because I thought it was wrong to drive 60 miles to that place because of the global warming. Fuel-efficient cars, mass transit, solar and wind power, higher standards for smoke emissions. We can do all of those things. And we can do it on a local level, and we can start fighting it now. Adapt to better water conservation. Create a water system in the West that makes global warming sense. We need to start talking about that. And the Bureau and the people that plan our water should sit down at the table and say, you know what, Nicholas Christensen has got a point. You know, we're not going to have as much water in the future. How are we going to decrease evaporation? How are we going to deliver water more efficiently? Are we going to make laws that talk about zero-scaping? Or, you know, and I do admire Patricia Mulroy down in Las Vegas because they do a lot of conservation down there. And, you know, in Phoenix and these other places, they look at conservation, and we need to. It's not going to solve the problem. You cannot solve Western water by conservation, but it's a part of it. Energy conservation, micropower, use less energy, become educated, learn about global warming, talk to people about it, convince them of it, help them. This is going to change life on this planet, and we've got to start planning right now. So I'm going to talk about the proposal that we heard yesterday about moving the counting point from Lake Powell down to Lake Mead. That was an intriguing idea, and so we thought a lot about it last night. Right now the dividing point is at Lake Mead, and the thought was to move it down to there with the little orange ball. I like that idea. It has a couple of interesting points. Now I'm just going to bring them up. It would, like Glen Canyon could be used as a backup to Lake Mead. We could start restoring sections of the whole river. It would give the upper basin 2 reservoirs to meet obligation if needed. You could operate those reservoirs as one. You decrease evaporative losses. It would keep Lake Mead high, less expensive to extract water, more efficient. Decrease the evaporative losses. It actually would decrease them. We might be able to get some of that water we saved down to the delta. It might be one of the ways we could get it down there. Restore segments of the river through Glen and the Grand Canyon. Better habitat for native species, and it would be more efficient power. Something that's the kind of innovative and creative thinking that we're going to have to start looking at. I'm not going to do any more with it. So this is a heart. I use this when I teach the medical students how the heart beats. It's a pretty good drawing, except there's not that much air in the heart. When we drew this, I said, well, maybe we shouldn't let that much air go through the system, but it does show how the heart beats. And this is the heart of the Colorado. So, when we say we need water down to the delta, and we need to restore the Grand Canyon or Glen Canyon, we're not doing it because Jennifer Pitt doesn't want water down there because she thinks it would be pretty to take her kids down there. She understands that we're part of this interesting river ecosystem that we have to preserve for sustainability. And by getting water down to the delta, we move towards a sustainable system. By becoming more environmentally sound on the river, we make environmental sense. We also make hydrologic sense. We can deliver a better and efficient system. When your doctor says to you, lose weight, keep your cholesterol down, and exercise, it's not because the doctor wants you to look nice at the prom or to your significant other, your husband or wife or your kids. That's a side effect of exercise. But they want you to live. When I tell my patients that come in, you know, you're a fat blob, you got to lose some weight. It's not because I own a health gym downtown. Well, that's not a bad idea. It's because I want that guy to live a long time. And so when these people say, let's restore this river, and let's do it in an environmental way, and let's look at an efficient way of water delivery, it's sustainable. And that's what they're talking about, is a sustainable system. And that's why they say that. So we need the heart to beat. Well, in the minute and 30 seconds I have left, we do propose this as a national park. We think it's a better use of this land than as a water storage facility for the Bureau. But our point is that Lake Powell is going to be very low for its future. If it fills, it'll drain quickly. These lands are out basically permanently, and we should start looking at them, and the faltering economies around there should start enjoying them. Every photo I'm going to show you in the remaining minute is pictures of water, features that have come out of water, and are now in the wonderful Glen Canyon. Cathedral in the Desert. This is when we took ABC News Nightline down. They did a half-hour story on this issue. There's the famous waterfall. We were probably the first people in there. This is Davis Gulch. These are two waterfalls that have come out, that came out with the flash floods last October. Lower Escalante. These pictures are in a book that we have out at our table. You're welcome to go get one. North Fork of Willow Creek, Fort Moki. This is Bishop Canyon. We found the Moki Steps up in Forbidding Canyon. They've been underwater for a number of years. The Hole in the Rock inscriptions, these pioneers gave their lives to settle that area. They came down Hole in the Rock, came up the other side, and there are the inscriptions still there today. We went and found them. These will likely never go underwater again. They should be preserved and they should be honored, the Mormon pioneers. Narrows a 50-mile gulch. Gregory Bridge is coming out. I have just 10 more. Bathtub Ring. These beautiful side canyons. Lower Escalante River. Sediments are being moved downstream. This is the Cowdy Gulch in the Escalante River. Lower Escalante. Mountain Sheep. Lagorce Arch. I tried to stand where Elliot Porter stood. I had this in my memory, so I didn't get exactly right, but I got close. Clear Creek. Willow Gulch. 50-mile Canyon Narrows. Height. White Canyon. Willow Gulch. There's just a few more here. I know the signs have to stop, so I'll stop. One thing I'll just tell you is that there was a lot of these canyons that didn't have names to them at all. That's Paul Winter performing Cathedral in the Desert. Sweat Canyon. This is Trikite Canyon across from Height. And then this was a canyon, Weather Hill, and so on. Davis Gulch, all out of water. Well, so that's it. Thank you. This was, oh, by the way, a canyon. We didn't know the name of it. I wanted to end on that one. So, a dozen of unnamed side canyons that have come out of water that we like to protect. Anyway, thank you very much, and God bless you all. And any questions, I'd love to answer. I get one question, and it's my sister here because I want to ask it. No, anybody, anything? I guess it's time. Thank you very much.